Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Fairygodboss live webinar. We're so excited to have you all join us, and we're going to give you all a few seconds to connect. But while we're waiting, we'd love to know where everyone's tuning in from today. So you'll see on the right hand of your screen, there's a chat box. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please send us a message saying, hey, and just let us know where you're from.
That's somebody from Florida. Did everybody hear that music? Kind of got me excited for this call.
It did. I was like, ooh, we've got.
I was kind of bobbing my head a little bit.
um I'm not. Are we seeing different people
Yeah,
chime
we
in?
have St. Pete, Florida. We have Stanford. Familiar with both of those. Have connections there.
Portland.
Phoenix,
Oh wow, Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Well, welcome everybody.
I haven't
Ireland.
been to Portland, Ireland. Man, we stretching far and wide. Are you actually in Ireland right now, or you are from Ireland? That's the question.
Well, it looks like we have literally folks from all over the world, which is great. And I think we should kind of go ahead and get started in the essence of time. So I'll start off with some introductions. My name is Denise Walls. I'm a named account executive here at Salesforce. I work in their commercial media and tech division. It's super exciting over here. I've been in sales for probably 10 years. Before Salesforce, I was at Verizon for 5 years. Had a great experience there and decided to kind of transfer over to Salesforce, where I've been here for about 2 years. It's been definitely a great journey. And before I hand it over to my co host, Everett, I do have a couple of quick announcements. This session will be recorded and it'll be shared via email with all the registrants. So make sure you check out the email. And also, this is more conversational. We would love to hear from you. So just please type in anything in the stage chat on the right, and we have people here to respond to your questions. And then also, for those of you who do not know, Fairy God Boss is the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairy God Boss for career connections, jobs, community advice, a hard to find intel about how companies treat women and virtual events like this. So it's super important. They're doing great work out there. And I'm super excited to kick off this event, which is Selling in the Age of AI, expert advice from Salesforce AEs, and it's sponsored by Salesforce. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Everett.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, my name's Everett Easterling. I'm also an account executive with Salesforce. I focus specifically in the marketing cloud, customer experience arena for CMT, which is communications, media, and telecom. I've been with Salesforce for a little over 3 years. Prior to that, I had a small stint at Oracle, but then spent most of my time in at Gartner, which is an IT advisory consulting company. And I saw someone's in Florida. I was based in Florida. Then I'm in Atlanta now. And the reason I'm so excited about this topic is, I have 3 kids myself. So as a sales associate, I'm always trying to figure out ways that I can be more intentional and effective with my time so that I can spend it closing deals, but also with my family when appropriate. So not when appropriate, but you know what I mean. It's always appropriate. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Awesome. So, I think we should kind of jump right into it, Everett. And I mean, we're really here to talk about the hot topic around sales. So, AI, we can't ignore it. It's practically changing everything at like light speed. I mean, if we think of ChatGPT, it literally had 1 million users 5 days after going live. And, by comparison, it took Instagram 2.5 months and Netflix 3.5 years to get to 1 million viewers. So I think that just reiterates the fact that technology is moving at a lightning speed and we have to keep up with it. And it's not just because we work for a tech company, but because I think technology can be a huge benefit if we use it properly.
I mean, I can't agree more. I think as sales executives, like I was saying before, the most important thing is time, right?
Mhm.
How can we get in front of more prospects? How can we get in front of more customers? How can we be most effective with our time or our day? Um, and if you think about it, is how do I get more efficient with some of those manual tasks?
Mhm.
So with that. you have to think about everybody's taught you. You mentioned it as well, Chat GPT, but AI isn't just Chat GPT. It's
Yeah.
automating manual processes that take up time to free us up to build these relationships with our customers, with our prospects. For me, I think there's so many opportunities to free up mental space by outsourcing those tasks to AI. So, for instance, for me, I currently use Supernormal, which is a platform or AI tool that takes notes for me during my meetings. And then from there, I can really focus in on a specific task of asking questions, being inquisitive, really understanding my clients, but then more importantly, taking that information, putting it back into AI and saying, hey, can you help me draft the follow up? Make sure that based on those conversations, based on who was on the call, and that is allowing me to free up some of that time, make my message clear, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I think when you said like free up mental space, it reminded me of a YouTube video that I was watching with Patricia Bright. And she said AI is helping me like free up my cognitive load, right? She used that word. I think many of you guys might know Patricia Bright, very successful female entrepreneur who's like who's doing all types of YouTube stuff. And she really started talking about AI. So, I mean, it's literally everywhere. And I think I want to echo your point when we talk about just freeing up that load so you can do different things. So, for instance, at Salesforce, we can do so many things at once, right? I have to have conversations with internal stakeholders and then external stakeholders. So, anything that can save me time, right? So, when we're thinking about summarizing, note taking, it's extremely valuable. And currently I'm also teaching other people on my team how to use chat gpt to source new leads. So if you think about like learning about new companies and finding the right person to connect with, it can be a very good way to get that information out there and quickly. It's making qualified lead sourcing so much easier, time consuming. I mean, can you imagine building an account plan in 2 minutes as opposed to like 10 days?
I'm glad you actually mentioned that because one, I do this too, right? I do it the same thing. I use it for that, but to dive in a little bit further, um, we're at a point where we can't go in and say with a CMO, a CEO, hey, let me take some time to learn more about your organization, right? That's dead on arrival. They're not listening at those emails. They're not looking at those, are taking those calls. So what I've been using it for is to prep for my conversations, even for prep for my outreach, if you will.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at it to say, understand more about the company, understand more about the individuals that will be in the meeting. I asked ChatGPT, and again, I'm going to say this, it's very important to focus on the prompts. What are you putting in ChatGPT? It can be wide ranging if you leave it to its own devices. So when I ask, how is this company making money? What is that industry? How do they make money? What are some of the hurdles? I'm literally just putting it in a ChatGPT so I can get that information that will then help me understand how do I understand from a broader economic standpoint what's important to these individuals, and that context saves the customer time from having to give me all that information in that initial meeting. I'm building credibility at the same time, and it actually positions us as someone who deeply understands their pain points and has a bigger picture of the context around what is needed to help with them. And again, I think the biggest thing here is to be concise in those prompts, making it more conversational. Uh, act as if you're actually talking to someone. Uh, it really helps, right? So you can go in there and say, I want to ask this question in the framework of a specialist, a Salesforce marketing AE. I could say I could actually get creative with it and say, can you help me write a sales prompt in the voice of Will Smith or Elon Musk or something like that? And if you can think about Denzel Washington giving a sales pitch, it'll actually do that as well. So you can be very specific around those prompts, and then get that information back. Um, I would say also when it comes to writing emails, I would say help me write an email to specific name, to specific title, and then you can actually shorten it. So now I'm getting using ChatGPT for two functions, right? For outreach to prospects and emails, I can then go back and say, make it a shorter, compact message specifically for LinkedIn. So there's multiple ways to be able to use this to help you in your everyday job.
Can I ask you, like, how did you get so good at prompt writing? Like, were you just playing around? Like, what was it?
It's funny you mentioned that. I was playing around with it, but when you try to explain it to someone else, I explained it to my mom. I
Mm.
explained it to my daughter. Of course, I didn't want her using it for school, right? She was asking me some crazy questions like, "How can I dodge raindrops?" But so when you explain it to other individuals, and that's one way that you can kind of help them understand the prompts. But there's a number of books, there's a number of resources out there, and what you'll start to understand is while you're continuing to use ChatGPT for emails, for communication, for insights, you'll see that you need to keep it very specific, or else it'll give you a long explanation, bullet points, but it'll be too broad. So you can actually challenge it. Be more specific in your prompts and see where it takes you.
Okay. Well, I think that definitely makes sense, and I like how you said that you tried explaining it to somebody else. And the key to it is specificity, right? So we want to try to be as specific as possible. I would encourage people to play around, try different things, like Everett said, like talk in the tone of Will Smith. Do all of these different things on your free time to see how you can get the most use out of it. I kind of I like you gently hinted at a LinkedIn message idea, and I like it. And one thing that I did that was really cool was I asked Chat GPT to explain something technical when my solution engineer wasn't immediately available.
Yep.
And the way that it broke down a technical concept, I was so excuse me, impressed, Everett. Like, I mean, it's obviously not like my first go-to, but the fact that it could break it down in a way, like you said, use that function to make it more excuse me, make it more concise, and all of these things, like my person, my prospect was able to understand it and learn very quickly, and it ultimately led me to like closing a small little deal. So I was very excited about that.
I think this is something that a lot of customers or excuse me, companies are leaning into.
Mhm.
I would also make sure that is almost like is a powerful tool. Everybody's trying to figure it out. I have customers trying to say, what is AI? You have CEOs that are flying around airports, they see
Mhm.
AI on the side and the advertisement, so they just go into the company and be like, hey, we got to figure this out. But it's really important. What's that Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility. You have to think about that from a security standpoint for yourself and for your company. And the reason I say that is because if you think about it, as a sales associate, yes, I want to use that, but how much information can I put into ChatGPT, which we do not own? And
Mhm.
how much personal information can I put for my customer, for my organization? You can go over to this later because I know you had talked about it before, but Salesforce is really entwined with ChatGPT, so we're in a little bit different of a situation. However, it's something that you want to make sure you're talking with your chief security officer, someone, your manager, to figure out how much of this information from a privacy standpoint can I use when it comes to ChatGPT.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. You have to be super sensitive with how much personal information you put in it because this technology is still very new. And at Salesforce, we have something called the Einstein Trust Layer. And it's essentially where you can use our GPT, whether it's sales GPT or service GPT, right within your CRM, right within Salesforce. And you don't have to worry about your information being saved because Salesforce has a zero retention policy, right? Our your data is not our product. That's kind of our motto at Salesforce. So I think it's important that you really understand the risks associated with it. And I mean, Everett, this might be a little off topic, but I kind of wanted to throw this in there because I read this over the weekend that a few hackers discovered how to hack Chat GPT by putting in different sort of prompts to get like crazy responses. And I wanted to know if you had seen that and what your thoughts are.
I mean, to be honest with you, so they say that ChatGPT has a human layer
Mhm.
of being able to check to see what type of prompts are going in. But I will say that I'm not surprised. You could kind of play around with it. There was a, not to get crazy, but it was a prompt of the way that they test AI to see how would you make humans turn into paper clips. And if it can answer that, then it's too powerful, and it will say no. But if you ask it a different way and mess around with the prompts, it'll eventually give you an answer. So with that, I'm not surprised, and that's why it's important to really think about how you're leveraging Chat GPT. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, I would don't get left behind. It's
Hmm.
going to be a service that will help you uh, better in your role, be more efficient, get in front. At the end of the day, in sales is a numbers game. You want to get a quality and quantity in regards to engaging with customers. So it's not something that we can forget. It's not something that's going to just pass us by. I think it's here to stay. How we start to embed it in our everyday lives is the question: what companies you can use, what sets you can use. And again, I want to talk about this again. Say this again. This conversation was AI. We did talk about ChatGPT because that's the most well known. But what I said before, I use super normal for taking notes or recording notes, and giving me the information. It's giving me the gist of the conversation. It gives me the action items, the follow up, etc. But I played around with things. I think somebody actually asked, "Can I use this for PowerPoints?" There is something called Tome, Tome, that you can put prompts in again to help you come up with a way to get your idea across in a visual manner. So coming up with sales pitches in a PowerPoint solution. At the end of the day, you're just going to want to make sure that you're staying abreast of what's going on with technologies, which companies are out there, so that you can start to play around with them. I'm just starting to play with Tome, but I have been using Supernormal from a certain note taking standpoint, and there's other ones out there. But hey, at the end of the day, I definitely enjoyed the conversation. I hope some individuals out there, even from Ireland, got some good content from this, or at least some just thinking ideas of how they're going to start leveraging AI in their everyday lives or with their careers. Um, but at this point, I think we could maybe turn it over, see if there's any
Before
questions.
before we turn it over, I did forget to mention one point, and I want to play like kind of devil's advocate. What about the people that say AI will replace you? Like what?
No, no, no. That's definitely something I've heard. And I'm not going to lie, there are roles that are going to allow for AI to kind of replace it. You look at Amazon and how they're building different grocery stores. I think Atlanta just came out with their first totally AI grocery store. You walk in, you just walk out, and that's what getting rid of the people who are doing our check-ins, checkout at the grocery store. There's going to be a number of tools, but at the end of the day, AI is just at this point, generative AI is built off of knowledge that is already out there. It's not creating new ideas and new ways. So it's actually just pulling all this data from the content that's available on the internet. So if you're a specialist, if you continue to uh, kind of be a continuous educator or a learner, you're going to be okay. It's more about how do I make sure that I'm using it to enhance my role, not nervous that it's going to take my role. Hey, if I don't sign up for ChatGPT, then it won't get the numbers, and then it'll fall to the wayside, and I'll get to keep my job. That's not necessarily the case, especially in sales. You and I both know is an emotional, sale as well as emotional conversation that you're
Yeah,
having with your clients, your customers. People buy from people they like. So
you
I
got to
would
build trust.
you got to build trust. So I would think of it as it's not going to take my job. It may alter the way I go about my job or alter the things that I do on an everyday basis, but something to lean into instead of running from.
No, I 100% agree. I echo everything you said. I know we talked about answering a couple questions. There were a couple questions that came up. I wanted to answer one of them, which is what kind of training does Salesforce offer to set up AEs for success? I will tell you that this is an organization where there is lots of training and there is lots of enablement, but most like relative to our conversation, we actually just had what we call a sales fuel training for 2 days in person, where we had all of our enablement leaders kind of talk to us about how do we build a point of view and how do we reach our client, different types of messaging. It was all day. And one of the topics that came up was how do you use predict like chat GPT or predictive AI to actually sell. So we are teaching this to our AEs out here in the field. We are learning it day by day.
Yeah. Is there any other questions? Let's see here.
Yeah, there's some on the private chat.
Oh, just to make sure you guys are aware as well, we do have Bijou, who is HR within
Mhm.
Salesforce. So if you had any specific questions around transferable skills or how to make, how do I get into a job within Salesforce or sales in general, specifically Salesforce, um, Bijou is following and monitoring the chat as well. So if you have any specific questions there, feel free to ask. See here, I'm gonna look at.
Gigi just posted an interesting one in the live chat that said, "What plugin do you use when researching a company?"
For me, I use a few. I use Built with,
Mhm.
get a better understanding of what tools they currently use. I've used SpyFu, as well as eData Source. Again, eData Source is something that I use in the marketing world because I get a better understanding in the sense of what kind of emails they're and their volume, what platforms they're using. Um, I I wouldn't count this as a plugin, but I use LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn Sales Navigator to understand where did the people that I'm reaching out to, where they come from, what kind of things are they posting on social, where what are companies using or where they're hiring. Like if I can find a company and look at their career page, so plug in, I usually go to the company's website too. What kind of careers or positions are they hiring for? Because that kind of indicates where is the company going as well.
And one really cool thing you could do too is for if you have publicly traded companies, like and you're looking through 10Ks, right, their reports, you can actually paste that into Chat GPT and ask it to summarize it for you. So that's another nifty research tool.
And just so you guys know, to add on to that, there's I don't remember the name of it, and I apologize for throwing it out there without the name. But ChatGPT is 2 years old, right? So if you ask for it, it'll say, "Hey, based on my knowledge of 2 years from previous, so October whatever 21st, 2021, this is what I know." But there are other, again, what we discussed before, AI tools where you can actually upload 10Ks into that prompt and say what are the key points of it, what are the things that I should figure out, etc. So yeah, uh, Denise, for you, what are some of the recommendations on how to pivot into tech sales? I guess for some individuals who may not be in tech sales.
um I guess, and I feel like I kind of pivoted because I was working, I was in technology. I mean, I was working for Verizon, but then when I got hired into Salesforce, I started working in the communications vertical, so it made sense that I had the background. So I would say that if you are in some sort of, maybe you're in a financial and you're thinking of like getting into sales, like look for our finance sector, like try to find stuff that matches with your experience, if that makes sense. um that's how I did it.
Yeah. Um, I would say think about the traits,
Mhm,
right? So, um, tech sales, other sales, it's more about clock speed. Are you interested? Are other people? And when I say that, are you inquisitive? Are you asking specific questions? Do you want to learn more? Are you persuasive? Are you competitive? Um, are you someone who is always trying to figure out how do I continue to improve and eh, become number one, if you will? Because at the end of the day, you have to wake up, come into the job every day thinking, how am I going to make an impact? Because it's very much tied to how I make, money.
mhm,
Um, so those are just, it's not necessarily how you pivot or go into tech sales, but those are some of the things you should probably think about before you go into sales in general. And I also like to point out the fact that a lot of people think sales is a tool that you need only when you want to go into a sales role. But if you think about it, to be honest with you, uh, that persuasiveness is something that you do in your everyday lives. And even if you look at some of those authors out there, it doesn't say best written book, it says best selling book, right? So those are the things that you can use in your everyday life. Um, I did have another question that someone came out here. Oh, Adrian asks, how can we manage AI with relation to the gender bias? Can we work with the algorithms and knowledge that is already oops, moving around? Uh, Already out there is very biased against women. Again, that is something that we're I'm not part of that, but that is something that is known, and I think it doesn't something I forgot the word and it's very basic. I just can't remember the word. It won't say that I don't know, right?
Hmm.
The tool will try to come up with an answer, and it's based on a lot of the things that you mentioned out there. It's very biased. It's actually somewhat can have you run into racial issues as well. So I think there is in the back end, and I know there's getting a number of prompts on an ongoing basis, but on the back end there are people that are supposed to be looking at those answers over time so that they can address that. um, for instance, I think if you ask ChatGPT, you know, uh, white males are typically uh, successful doctors or something like that when you ask ChatGPT, right? But we all know that's not necessarily the case. There's multiple people in multiple arenas and areas where you can be successful, but is that's the bias of using AI. So I would take that with grain of salt when you're looking at those prompts, whether you're using it for sales or anything else, that there is an error that you have to kind of review before you just use that information.
And I also want to echo to the point of Salesforce when I kind of mentioned that Einstein trust layer. Part of the work that they're doing is to manage that bias and that toxicity that can come out of these large language modules. So that is one thing that they strip it out of. So they like look, so you have a grounded prompt within our CRM. If it comes back as like toxic or bias, it'll actually like not allow you to do it. So and they have a trail of how people are using AI within the platform. So, or sorry, with using the GPT within the platform.
I like some of the comments in here. So some people are answering the questions for us. So there
Hmm.
are different ways you can use ChatGPT to for plugins, for more recent information and news. Thank you, Gigi. And she has had some luck in calling out some of those biases. Let's see. I think that's
And
about it. Go ahead.
one thing I did want to add because I kind of missed this. We have an entire AI's ethic council to talk about this, and you can check it out on Salesforce.com. It talks about how we can mitigate bias within our AI tools. We're very much aware that this is a problem, and like Everett said in the beginning of the conversation, it's important that we stay ahead of it and that we're responsible with the technology.
Anything? I'm not seeing anything else. Let's see here. Give it a minute or so. Hey, just real quick, Denise. Just want to ask you, what's different about being an AE at Salesforce in your mind?
What's different about being an AE at Salesforce?
Is this why we're asking, waiting for that last question? If not, we'll wrap it up. But I just want to get that out there.
There is an abundant amount of resources. And when you're at an organization, like, I always worked at companies that used Salesforce to monitor our sales activity. But when you are at Salesforce, you have every single tool. So that is very different for me. And it's great. Like I've learned so much. I know I'm a super seller at this point. How about you?
You touched on the main one, right? There's so many different resources. I would also say that no one sells alone, right?
Mm.
So, yes, the resources are there, but you don't have to be an expert in everything. You're gonna have people, and it kind of goes with the resources you mentioned, but it's a team environment around here, and you really feel that. And that goes from the sales to succeeding, moving to different roles. You have that opportunity to work with other individuals. Um, let's see here. I think let's answer one more question. I think somebody asked about other AI-enabled productivity tools, but I think we covered that one. I do want to kind of just wrap it up on my part, and I'll let you do the same, is as you guys are continue to dive into AI, Salesforce, sales in general, feel free. My name's on the webinar, Everett Easterling, to reach out via LinkedIn. And I'm happy to answer questions there, whether it be around AI, and we just set up some time to talk. Again, I'm based in Atlanta, um, part of Salesforce, part of Boldforce, on the board at Emerging 100. So happy to just chat about anything that comes to mind. But also, feel free to reach out, and we can dive into how to best position you for a role at Salesforce. Is that something that you're interested in as well?
Same here. I echo everything that Everett just said. You can find me on LinkedIn, Denise Wall. Send me a message. I'm available. I'm happy to help. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.